Hello all, this is a presentation on the Behavioural Management Committee at ZSL and includes a brief overview of what the committee does. The BMC was set up by keepers for keepers, and its main goals are to improve animal training, enrichment and welfare for animals at ZSL. The Behavioural Management Committee present and host our own workshops and conferences. Last year we presented at the ABMA conference on a range of training and enrichment that is taking place at ZSL. We also hosted an animal training workshop where keepers from other zoos were able to be trained in how to train animals. At Whipsnade we hosted the Dogs Trust, who are a UK-based charity that specialise in the rehabilitation and rehoming of abandoned and abused dogs. The charity spent the day with our carnivore and elephant teams to learn about the protected contact training we do with our dangerous animals and how these techniques could be used for the dogs at their centres. We also host various enclosure evenings throughout the summer, and these evenings provide staff with the time and resources after hours to do large changes to their animal enclosures. These large changes are not normally achievable within the working day, as it requires a lot of staff and time for the enclosures to be changed. This year we've changed our chimp enclosure by completely re-roping the paddock, as well as creating a variety of fire hose enrichment and a built-in herb garden for the chimps. In return for spending a few extra hours of their time after work, all staff involved in the evening are rewarded with free pizza and refreshments. As with many other zoos in the UK, ZSL is involved with a nationwide apprenticeship scheme in which all apprentices receive on-the-job training in various subjects. As part of the BMC's role, we are required to provide lessons on training and enrichment so that all animal staff at ZSL have at least a basic understanding of how to train and enrich animals. Both these lessons are practical based and involve students going around the sites to watch and participate in various training and enrichment activities. We now come to the BMC's main yearly event, our presentation evening. This evening is used to show all staff at ZSL the training and enrichment programs that have been going on around the site over the last year. The event is held at either Whipsnade or London Zoo, and the venue alternates every year. The event is free of charge, with food and drink provided, and gives animal staff the chance to showcase their training and enrichment programs to a larger group of ZSL staff. These staff come from various different areas of the zoo, and there can be around 100 to 200 people, and these include curators, directors, volunteers, retail staff and other animal-based staff. Every year at the event there is a vote for the best presentation for each site, with winners receiving various training and enrichment devices for their sections. Over the next few slides I'm going to highlight some of the training and enrichment programs that were presented at this year's evening. First we go to the farm team at Whipsnade, who wanted to reduce the weight of their ponies and horses, as well as reducing their chances of colic. The team designed this track system for their paddocks, and the idea behind this is to place the animals' resources around the circular track to encourage them to walk more. This will encourage more natural behaviours, as the animals will have to seek out their resources as they would in the wild. This video gives you a quick glimpse of what the track system looks like. As you can see from the pictures, there are a lot of different resources that the horses and ponies have access to. You can also see in the middle a plan of the track system and how the animals could move around it. The idea is that if the horses wanted to walk over to their scratching post, they would have to walk either way around the track system rather than cutting straight across the field. The track system does not use food deprivation as a motive to move the animals, as they're free to graze anywhere around the track system. The system also allows for paddocks to be rotated so that they can be rested to ensure high quality grazing year round. In this slide we look at the impact of the track system and how it's affected our horses. So Thomas and Star are our yearling Dartmoor ponies, and a body increase of 10% of their weight is what we would like to see. For Tulip, Trevor and Bianca, we wanted their weight to fall and their body condition to improve. And as you can see from the pictures, this was achieved. We now move down to London Zoo, where we're looking at some blood draw training with Nikki, our pygmy hippo. Due to age-related problems, Nikki was in need of a blood test to monitor her kidney function, and the hoofstock and veterinary teams wanted to do this as a trained behaviour rather than under a general anaesthetic. Nikki is a very cooperative animal, and desensitising her to having a blood draw from the tail was a quick process. Unfortunately, the blood drawn from the tail was clotting, not providing the veterinary team with enough of the sample to get any usable results. This was due to the depth of the vein in the hippo's tail. The teams had heard of a technique that used kissing bugs to extract the blood from the hippo, and then extracting the blood from the kissing bug could be performed by our veterinary teams. The hoofstock team tied a string to the kissing bug, which was as difficult as you can imagine, but this allowed the team to track the bug, and if it was to drop off the animal, it could be found easier in the enclosure. Nikki was brought into her training area and stationed, and was rewarded whilst the bug was placed on her back. Although the bug was able to withdraw blood from the hippo's back, the team soon discovered that the softer skin on the hippo's stomach was a much better location. The team were able to get a good sample from Nikki to monitor her kidney function, and due to the success, the team plans to get blood sample from Nikki every 3 months. In the next slide, you can see some of the results and our male thug being trained to have a needle placed into his tail.
Thug's lifting. Touch. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy.
We now move to the flamingos at London Zoo, and the bird team at London wanted to desensitise their flamingos to being locked into the back paddock, pond and indoor house overnight and during the bird flu season. Usually this would involve the entire bird team herding individuals from their main pond to the back pond. However, the team wanted to do this under a trained recall. This is something that, due to the bird's natural nervous disposition, took a little while to achieve. However, after a while, the flamingos would be recalled into the back pond by the handbell shaker that you can see in the picture on the right hand side. It then took a little while longer before the team were able to walk past the flamingos and close the gate behind them. However, the training of the flamingos wasn't always smooth sailing. The flamingos live with a group of pelicans who would often follow the flamingos into the back pond and disturb their training. You can see the troublesome individuals in this video. Luckily, after a while, the pelicans realised that there was no food or reward for them coming into the back pond. The flamingos are now recall trained so that they can be called into the back pond and be locked in overnight or during the bird flu season. The team are also able to close the gate behind the flock, and the process of moving the flamingos is much less stressful for the birds and for the team. It now also means that only one member of staff is needed to move the entire flock, rather than having to use the entire team. You'll see in this video that the birds are moving down through their back pond towards their house. We now move back to Whipsnade to look at the training involved with a hunting dog dental procedure. The first thing the team needed to do was to desensitise the dogs to being in their house, which historically is an area they have not liked to spend much time in. At the end of the slide you'll be able to see a video that shows the dogs coming in for food but grabbing it and heading straight back out into their paddock. However, after about 6 weeks, you can see from the picture in the bottom left hand corner, the dogs had become comfortable eating inside their house. After this, the team needed to train the dogs to station against the mesh and to be able to feed next to each other. This behaviour was picked up quickly, and it wasn't too long until the dogs knew their stations and where they were to go to feed. You can see from the 2 pictures on the right hand side that each dog had its own colour and shape station that could be clipped to the mesh. The dog that required the dental work was stationed in a raceway separate from the other 2 dogs in the pack. This dog was stationed so that it could be hand injected with a general anaesthetic so that the dentistry work could take place. These dogs have had a history with being hand injected for vaccinations, so ensuring that the dog was able to line up correctly for the general anaesthetic was very simple. In the video you can see that the dog lies down and receives a blunt needle to the left hind leg. The dog then gets up and moves away before coming back and receiving the proper injection. The dog is then recalled into the house and the other dogs are moved back into the paddock.
That was calm. This is where you can come down. That's good girl. Well done.
The dental work was then performed in the house, and once the dog had recovered from the general anaesthetic, she was introduced back into the pack. Reintroduction into packs can be challenging with hunting dogs, however this reintroduction went very well, with the female being accepted back into the pack with no issues. The final presentation I'm going to talk about is the use of an induction chamber for slender loris. Induction chambers are used to provide an aerosol-based general anaesthetic to an animal within a confined space. The general anaesthetic tube connects to the end of the induction chamber and allows the animal inside to be given the anaesthetic. Slender loris are naturally a nervous species, so when it comes to having to get them to the vets for their health checks, it can be very difficult. However, at London Zoo, we've used an induction chamber with some callitrichid and lemur species, and it's worked very well. So the small mammal team at London decided to try this with their slender loris. The team's adult female needed her yearly health check at the vets, so the team decided to train her into the induction tunnel so that she could be transported to the vets with minimal stress. The process started out by desensitizing her to having the tunnel in her enclosure. After this milestone was met, the rear end of the tunnel was placed onto the chamber once she'd entered, but the front remained open so that the slender loris could still be rewarded and had the option to leave if she required. Once the loris was comfortable being in the tube, both ends were placed on and the team worked on increasing the amount of time the loris would spend in the tube. After a month, the team were able to take the loris up to the vets to have her health check, and after recovering from the general anaesthetic, the slender loris was using the induction chamber that same afternoon. The same chamber was also used for Cinnamon for her first yearly health check. The process that took place was exactly the same as her mother's, but progressed much quicker. This is because she's a younger animal and was more interested in the tube. She was also able to learn from her mother as well as from her keepers about what was required when entering the tube. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much to the ABMA for allowing me to do this presentation. Below, I've included the emails of everyone that were involved with these various presentations, and I want to say a big thank you to them for allowing me to share their stories.